Have you ever wondered why the ones you love the most are often the ones who hurt you the deepest? It's not just pain, it's betrayal wrapped in familiarity, heartbreak hiding behind a trusted face. And that's what makes it so devastating. Not the act itself, but the identity of the one who did it. One of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves is that the harm done to us wasn't intentional, that maybe it was a slip, a lapse in judgment, a fleeting moment of weakness. But deep down, we know better. We feel better because there's a difference between someone stumbling into our hearts and someone calculating their entrance with precision. There's a difference between an accident and an agenda. And if you're honest with yourself, you felt the difference. They didn't break your trust by mistake. They studied it. They watched your vulnerability open like a blooming flower. And they stepped right into that soft place with boots on, crushing what they knew was sacred. Their words weren't thrown around carelessly, they were aimed. Their timing wasn't unfortunate, was planned. What you thought was a misunderstanding was, in fact, a mission. And what shakes you to your core isn't just the betrayal. It's the fact that it came from someone you let into the inner sanctuary of your life. Someone you prayed for, defended, cared for. Someone you believed would never deliberately wound you. Yet here you are, heart shattered, trust in ruins, left alone with the ache of realizing that not every smile is sincere, and not every connection is safe. The enemy doesn't always show up dressed in red, horns blazing. Sometimes, the enemy looks like loyalty, sounds like love, hugs like family. And when they finally drive the knife in, it doesn't feel like betrayal right away. It feels like confusion. It feels like, did I do something wrong? It feels like you're the one who misunderstood, but you didn't. Deep down, you didn't. You just didn't want to believe it. You wanted to believe they were still good, that the history you shared somehow protected you from harm. That time equaled trust. But history doesn't guarantee honor. And time doesn't create integrity. Some people don't evolve, they just get better at hiding their true nature. So when the mask falls, don't put it back on for them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Stop making excuses for intentional damage. Stop rewriting your memory to make someone else look better. The pain you felt was real. The tears, the silence, the lonely, that was all real. And what hurts most is that they saw it, they knew it, and they didn't flinch, they didn't reach back. And if they apologized, it wasn't because they regretted the harm, it was because they feared losing control. Your compassion is a gift, but don't let it blind you. Some people study you like a blueprint. They track your patterns, memorize your soft spots, revisit your old wound sand when the moment comes. They strike with precision. And we call it love, we call it friendship, we call it family. But real love doesn't aim to break. Real love protects. Real love holds space for healing. Real love doesn't twist the knife deeper just because you're already on your knees. But so many of us keep reopening doors God already helped us close. We rationalize, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe they were just going through something. And while grace is beautiful, grace without wisdom becomes bondage. Forgiveness? It's a command. But foolishness? That's a choice. God didn't ask you to put your heart back into the hands that shattered it. He asked you to guard it. He told you to walk in truth. And the truth is, if they hurt you intentionally once, they are likely to do it again. Stop handing out second chances to people who took the first one as an opportunity to destroy you. Stop thinking loyalty means enduring suffering. Stop defining love by how much pain you're willing to carry. Start defining it by how much respect, safety, and honor is present. Because love isn't proven by your ability to endure harm, it's proven by your ability to thrive in truth. And yes, letting go is hard. It feels like failure. It feels like cutting off a piece of your past. But you're not losing, you're learning. You're not letting go of love, you're letting go of a lie. And until you do, you can't make room for the love God truly intends for your life. Sometimes, the only way to embrace the right thing is to release the wrong one, even if it feels familiar. Don't minimize your pain just to keep someone around. Don't rewrite the story so they can stay a part of it. God didn't ask you to lie to yourself in order to love someone else. If someone damages you intentionally, it's not love. It's not grace. It's not a misunderstanding. It's manipulation. It's control. It's darkness, wearing the disguise of light. And it's time to name it for what it is. Not to shame them, not to get even, but to finally free yourself. Forgiveness is powerful. It breaks chains. It releases toxins. It heals hearts. But hear this, forgiveness is not the same thing as access. You can forgive someone and still remove them from your life. You can release the bitterness without reopening the door. You can offer grace without offering yourself up for another round of damage. Because we've been taught to forgive, but we've forgotten how to guard. And guarding your heart is not being cold, it's being wise. So, protect your peace. Let forgiveness cleanse you. But don't confuse it with forgetfulness. There's a difference. God calls you to love, but He never called you to let wolves dine at your table. They say forgiveness sets you free, but freedom isn't foolishness. In the last moment, we realized, just because we're called to forgive doesn't mean we're called to invite destruction back into our lives. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting wisdom, and it certainly doesn't mean walking back into the same fire that once burned us. Yes, God calls us to grace, but He never said, let the wolf back into the sheepfold just because you prayed for him. You may have forgiven them in your heart, and yes, that's the right step, but that doesn't mean they belong in your future. Some people were meant to walk with you through the wilderness, but they were never meant to step with you into the promised land. Their season in your story has ended. And just because you've laid down the grudge doesn't mean you have to reach out your hand again. So many of us are exhausting our hearts, draining our spirits, trying to love people back into decency. We think if we just forgive enough, pray enough, stay long enough, they'll finally become the person we believe they could be. But sometimes, God allows separation, not as punishment, but as protection. Sometimes, the silence is the safest sound. When you keep giving access to the ones He's trying to remove, you're not walking in forgiveness, you're walking in disobedience. True forgiveness says, I release you. It says, I'm done carrying the poison of this pain. But it also says, I choose to guard the peace God gave me, because that peace came with a price. You cried for it, you bled for it, you fought your way through emotional battles, clawed your way out of spiritual darkness to find stillness again. Why hand it back to someone who shattered it the first time? Letting someone back into your life just because you forgave them is like giving a thief the key to your house because you prayed about the last break-in. That's not redemption, that's sabotage. And don't be fooled, some people are not sorry they hurt you. They're sorry they lost access to you. They don't miss you because they cherish you. They miss you because you were easy. You were the one who always answered, always cared, always forgave. And they counted on that. They took your grace as weakness. They confused your compassion for compliance. And now that you've found your strength, now that your eyes are finally open, they want back in. Not to love you right, but to reset the same toxic cycle. That's why you must learn not only to forgive, but to protect. You can pray for someone from a distance. You can carry love in your heart and still carry wisdom in your boundaries. You can wish someone well without welcoming them in. God isn't judging you for creating distance. He's watching the boundaries you build. And when people ask, but didn't you forgive them? You can say, yes, I just learned not to trust them again. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. That's not revenge. That's discernment. The same God who told you to forgive also told you to guard your heart. And you cannot guard what you keep handing over to those who only know how to break it. The world might whisper that forgiveness means reunion, that to prove you've truly healed, you must act like nothing ever happened. But you know better. Forgiveness is between you and God. Access? That's between you and discernment. And if God is closing a door, don't you dare prop it back open out of guilt. He knows what you don't. He heard the whispers behind your back. He saw the betrayal behind the smiles. He knows the plans they made while pretending to love you. Sometimes his protection feels like isolation. Sometimes his mercy feels like loss. But trust me, it's deliverance in disguise. You don't owe anyone access just because you've forgiven them. That's not pride, that's preservation. That's honoring what God restored in you. So bless them, release them, pray for them, but stop giving front row seats to people who clapped when you fell. Stop handing the pen to those who once tried to erase your story. Because they didn't just hurt you by accident. No, this wasn't a slip of the tongue or a burst of anger. It was planned. They watched you, studied your kindness, memorized the language of your heart. They saw what lit up your soul, what silenced your spirit, what made you open up, and they used it. With full awareness, they chose to wound you. And that's what makes it hurt the most. It wasn't just what they did, it was the fact that they knew you, really knew you. They knew the weight you already carried. They knew the healing you were still fighting for, and they broke you anyway. But now you know better, and with that knowledge comes freedom. Let them go. Guard your heart, keep your peace, and walk boldly into the healing you deserve. In the silence that follows strength, a new kind of clarity emerges because the storm only rages where it finds resistance. When people seek to provoke, they're not searching for peace, they're searching for control. And when they find someone who won't play the game, who won't be pulled into the chaos, they begin to lose interest. You see, people only keep poking at what reacts. When their words are met with composure instead of conflict, they have no fuel to keep the fire going. Some will say, but I need to defend myself. I need to make sure they know they can't talk to me like that. But here's the truth. Self-respect isn't proven in confrontation. It's displayed in discernment. It's knowing what's worth your energy and what's not. Because not every insult is worth a comeback, and not every battle is yours to fight. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is no statement at all. When you withhold the reaction they're hoping for, you're denying them access to your peace. So the next time someone disrespects you, ask yourself, is this moment worth my energy? Does this situation deserve my peace? If the answer is no, let it go. Protect your mind, your spirit, your clarity, because some fights are simply beneath the level you're operating on. Walking away doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're wise. Words may fly, but wisdom chooses silence. People will always have something to say. They'll throw words like stones, trying to hit a nerve, hoping to trigger a reaction. And the temptation will rise within you to retaliate, to fire back, to prove your strength. But real power isn't proven in arguments. Real power isn't loud. It's solid, steady, grounded in truth. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them misjudge. None of it changes your value, none of it alters your worth, and none of it deserves your energy. You don't need to convince people of who you are. Let your life do that. Your actions, your growth, your success, those are your answers. And they speak louder than any rebuttal ever could. Because the ones who focus on proving themselves to the doubters, they stay distracted. They spin in circles of arguments and petty drama. But the ones who stay focused, who keep their heads down and their hearts aligned, they move forward. And by the time the noise catches up, they're too far ahead to be touched. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. There are people who will bait you, hoping you'll come down to their level, hoping to entangle you in their chaos. But when you refuse to engage, when you stay rooted in your purpose, you eliminate the battle before it ever begins. You win it by fighting, but by being too focused to even notice the fight. Think of the greats, the ones who changed the world. They didn't waste time on critics or haters. They didn't stop to explain their worth to everyone who questioned it. They let their work do the talking. their consistency, their impact, their legacy that became their response. And that's what you must choose. Don't waste time convincing small minds of your greatness. Be great. Keep going. Let your momentum be your voice. And the truth is, people notice, even the ones who once disrespected you. At first, they mock, they doubt, they speak low of your efforts. But when you keep going unshaken, unbothered, unwavering, they fall silent. Because nothing confuses a person more than someone who refuses to be affected by them. Nothing silences a critic faster than undeniable results. That's the power of silence backed by action. It speaks volumes without ever saying a word. That's why you don't react to every insult. You channel that energy into building, into rising, into becoming everything they said you couldn't be. Because at the end of the day, your success will say more than your mouth ever could. Yes, disrespect stings. It hits hard, especially when it comes unexpectedly or from someone you care about, and the natural impulse is to defend yourself, to explain, to correct, to respond. But remember this, disrespect isn't about you. It's a reflection of them, a mirror showing their pain, their bitterness, their inner storm. People who carry insecurity, who wrestle with their own failure, often throw that pain onto others. But you don't have to catch what they throw. Their brokenness doesn't have to become your burden. Don't carry pain that doesn't belong to you. Don't let their negativity become your narrative. Because the moment you do, you give them something they never earned power over you. That's why silence is so powerful. It says, I see your chaos, but I refuse to dance in it. It says, your noise is loud, but it has no place in my world. The people who go around disrespecting others aren't searching for truth. They're searching for control. They want to shake your ground, rattle your calm, steal your focus. But when you remain quiet, when you don't play into their drama, they're left alone with their own reflection. And that's what they fear the most. Because the people who hurt others, they're running from the hurt inside themselves. They insult, not because they see your flaws, but because they can't handle their own. But when you choose silence, when you rise above, when you walk forward with focus and peace, you do more than protect your energy, you reclaim it. You reclaim your story, your momentum, your power. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them fade into the background while you rise into the purpose God placed in front of you. Your silence is not the absence of strength, it is the proof of it. Because when someone wounds you with full knowledge of your pain, the wisest thing you can do is stop giving them front row access to your soul. You're not being cruel by walking away, you're being courageous. You're not fueled by hate, you're grounded in wisdom. Because when someone has studied your softness only to use it as a weapon, when they've seen your scars and decided to add another one, they are not someone God sent to heal you, they're someone He exposed to free you. And when God exposes, He's not asking for your denial, He's inviting you into deliverance. So let the truth be the closure, let the clarity be the confirmation, let it open your eyes, not the door. There comes a point in your life where walking away becomes the holiest act of self-respect you'll ever commit to, not out of vengeance, not out of bitterness, but because you finally realize peace isn't found in places where you're only tolerated. Peace lives where you are loved without conditions, where your soul is not under constant repair. And it takes a deep kind of bravery to say, no more, not like this, because the world may call it giving up, but heaven calls it growing up. See, the enemy loves cycles. He thrives in loops of false apologies and empty promises of, I'll do better, followed by, I never meant to hurt you, only for the same pattern to repeat. He wants you stuck. He wants you to believe that staying broken is what love looks like. But let me tell you something sacred. Real love doesn't destroy you in the name of growth. It doesn't come wrapped in confusion, shame, and emotional debt. Real love builds. It brings clarity. It aligns with peace. It protects, not manipulates. And sometimes, the most powerful kind of love is the one you show yourself, the love that sets boundaries, that says, enough. That turns away from those who only value your presence when it's convenient for their control. Because some people, they know you're valuable, they just hope you never realize it. They shrink your worth with subtle words. They call you too much when you're only asking for the bare minimum. And when you finally begin to rise, when your soul starts to recover, that's when they get uncomfortable, because your healing reveals their harm. They'll mock your boundaries. They'll weaponize your empathy. They'll tell you you're selfish for protecting the very heart they broke. And you stay. You stay longer than you should. You stay hoping they'll change. You stay thinking your loyalty will convict their conscience. You stay believing love means sacrifice, no matter the cost. But here's a truth that might just set you free. Staying isn't always strength sometimes. It's survival dressed in guilt. And God, in His mercy, will whisper through the storm, it's time. It's time to stop calling bondage love. It's time to stop confusing pain with purpose. Because deliverance isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like quiet strength. Sometimes it feels like walking away, grieving what never was, and stepping into the light with tear-stained clarity. Will it hurt? Yes. Walking away always carries a cost. You'll mourn what it could have been. You'll miss the memories more than the person. But that ache you feel, it's not a punishment. It's the price of freedom. And on the other side of that ache is peace. Deep, anchored, soul-refreshing peace. The kind that doesn't depend on someone else doing right by you. The kind that lets you breathe fully for the first time in a long while. Maybe you've been begging God for peace, and He's been showing you their fruit. He's been revealing their intentions, one by one. Every mask that slipped, every betrayal that surfaced, every time you had to pretend it didn't hurt, all of it was Him saying, look, I'm trying to show you what you've been praying about. But instead of walking away, you patched it. You made excuses. You silenced your discernment to preserve the illusion. And every time you did, you delayed your own healing. You watered down the truth, just to keep someone who's already spiritually walked out. Listen, not every door needs to be reopened. Some endings are actually beginnings in disguise. Some goodbyes are God's way of making room for better. And you cannot enter the promise if you keep clinging to what He's already released you from. And please, don't let guilt drag you back into a cage you were meant to leave. You don't owe your healing to those who helped break you. If they couldn't value you when you were bleeding, they don't deserve to walk beside you while you're healing. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them wonder what happened. Let your absence do what your presence never could protect you. And trust this, the same God who carried you through the worst of it is already waiting for you on the other side. He's not watching you leave empty-handed. He's walking with you into a future that doesn't require explanation, just obedience. Because forgiveness, it's a gift for them and for you. But access, that's a boundary. That's discernment. That's wisdom. And wisdom will always protect what forgiveness makes possible. Because when someone shattered your trust, played games with your sincerity, and did it with full awareness that's not just hurtful, that's intentional. And when harm is intentional, restoration is not your obligation. Forgiveness, yes, always, but foolishness, never. God calls us to forgive, but He never calls us to be a doormat. He commands us to love, but He never commands us to hand the keys of our peace back to the ones who broke it without repentance. Let's be clear, you can bless someone from a distance. You can pray for their healing without inviting them back into the sacred space they once violated. You can release bitterness without reopening the door they slammed on your heart. Because some people weren't just part of a painful season, they were a divine warning. A warning wrapped in a lesson, and that lesson isn't meant to be ignored. It's meant to protect your future. So if you let them back in without fruit, without change, without genuine repentance, you're not practicing grace. You're re-entering betrayal. Forgiveness says, I let go of the offense. But wisdom says, I do not give you the same position you once had. Both can live in the same heart. Both can flow from healing. And that combination, forgiveness and wisdom, is what keeps your soul safe. Yes, there are people who know exactly what to say. They've studied your empathy like a script. They know how to sound sincere, but don't confuse a rehearsed apology with a repentant heart. Don't mistake guilt for growth, because guilt can cry. Guilt can say sorry. Guilt can make promises, but only true repentance produces fruit. And until that fruit shows up, they stay on the other side of your gate, while your peace remains untouched. And if you're wondering whether you're being too harsh, let me remind you, boundaries are not bitterness, caution is not cruelty, discernment is not judgment. It's called being a good steward of your emotional safety. Jesus said to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. That means you can be loving and still protective. You can extend mercy without giving away your vulnerability again. Because the enemy would love for you to believe that forgiveness means passivity, that to be spiritual, you have to be spineless. But that's a lie. Godly forgiveness is never blind. The Holy Spirit will teach you how to forgive with open eyes, how to release the weight of offense without re-inviting the offender into a place they haven't earned. And hear me, the person who broke you doesn't get to define your next chapter. Just because they show up with an apology doesn't mean they've changed. Just because they say they miss you doesn't mean they value you. You must look deeper. Look for fruit. Look for humility. Look for transformation, not just tears, not just guilt, not just the right words at the right time. Because unless their actions have changed, their access remains revoked. Forgiveness is about setting you free from what they did. Access, that's about protecting who you are becoming. That's about building a future that is no longer built on broken foundations. So yes, bless them. Release them. Pray for them. But do not feel obligated to answer when they come knocking on the same door they once kicked open. You don't owe them a re-explanation. You don't owe them a rerun of the story. God already closed that chapter. You can smile with grace, forgive with sincerity, and still say, "Not this time. God is doing something new in me, and I won't let old wounds interrupt new beginnings." And there's nothing wrong with that. That's not selfishness, that's spiritual maturity. That's not holding a grudge, that's holding your peace. If they truly honored you, they would have never shattered you. If they respected your soul, they wouldn't be asking to come back through a door they themselves set ablaze. And if that doesn't speak louder than their apology, listen again. Because letting go isn't always pretty. It's not always clean or painless. Sometimes it's crying in silence for the person you once prayed would stay. Sometimes it's grieving the loss of what you hoped they would be. But hear this, not everyone is meant to walk into your future. Some people were only ever assigned to a chapter, not the whole story. And your healing? It starts the moment you stop forcing a fit where they were never meant to remain. It may sting, it may feel like loss, but obedience often does. The enemy wants you stuck in old texts, stuck in old memories, stuck in that last conversation where you hoped they'd finally understand. But as long as you're rehearsing the past, you are not reaching for the future. As long as you're explaining your worth to someone who already devalued it, you're pausing your purpose. You can't climb toward healing if you're holding hands with what hurt you. You can't move forward while your eyes are fixed on who let you down. And you certainly can't embrace the next thing God has prepared if your arms are full of yesterday's pain. So trust Him. Trust that He sees the bigger picture. Trust that your obedience is never in vain. Trust that the same God who walked with you through heartbreak will lead you into wholeness. And when you finally say, "God, I trust you with what's behind me, I'm ready for what's ahead," you'll begin to taste peace again. The kind of peace that doesn't beg, the kind that doesn't explain. The kind that simply walks away in truth, in strength, in freedom. Sometimes The greatest proof of healing is simply letting go, because as we touched on before, clinging to what hurts you only keeps you from receiving what heals you. And the enemy knows this well. He knows that if he can keep your heart anchored to yesterday, if he can keep your focus entangled in the what-ifs, the could-have-beens, and the unanswered questions, you'll walk right past the blessing God has already placed in front of you today. But here's the truth. God is not calling you to stay. He is calling you higher. Take your peace back from those who never protected it. It's the moment you look at yourself, not with pity, but with power, and remember who you are in Christ. From that moment on, you no longer entertain anything that makes you feel less than loved. You no longer chase validation from people who couldn't see your beauty even when you were standing in the light. You no longer save space for ghosts who once haunted your peace. You walk forward, maybe with a limp, maybe with scars, but you walk free. Because when God heals, He doesn't just patch the broken parts, He gives you something brand new. A new heart that no longer beats in fear. A new strength that doesn't break under pressure. A new joy that doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. And when He restores, it's never just about what was taken, it's about preparing you for what's coming. So leave the door closed. Let silence be what it is. Let the past remain behind you. Don't you dare dig up what God has buried for your protection. The ones who are meant to walk with you, those sent by heaven, will not need to be chased. They won't need to be convinced. And the life God has prepared for you won't require you to sacrifice your sanity to keep it together. So let go and walk in freedom.